Actually, Wendy, you do the honors of welcoming.
Welcome, everyone. Hello, all my omnivores. So excited to be back with you. I missed you guys. It's been a few months. It's been a few crazy months. Working on the remix team, and I am so excited to talk to you about this. But before we do that, Edmar, what are our announcements?
Well, first, I want to say right away, first of all, welcome back, Wendy. We have missed you so much, and we are so excited to have this live stream with you and your team today to see what you've been up to. Super exciting. As Wendy just mentioned, we're going to cover the RTX Remix Open Beta, which just kicked off. We have very special guests from the RTX Remix team and the community. We're going to take your questions, so get your questions posted in the chat. We have a bunch of helpers here also helping us from the team. So we should be able to answer everything. Before we get started, a couple of really quick announcements. One is GTC is coming up March 18th to 21st. It's our first on-site GTC in like 5 years. But don't worry if you can't make it for some reason or another. We will have virtual support for GTC as well. It's really important that you go to that website, nvidia.com/GTC, check out the sessions, put the keynote on your calendar, register if you can. It's the best way to find out about the latest news. We have things separated by topic there. It's going to be fantastic. If you are going, we would absolutely love for you to let us know if we can help you set up any meetings with anyone from the NVIDIA team or any one of our partners. You could shoot me an email anytime in edmar@nvidia.com. Let me put our names on the screen here. And then you could also reach us through Discord. We have a special channel specifically for GTC. That is just called GTC. So we go to Discord server, discord.gg/NVIDIA Omniverse. I also have a very special guest here. Before we get started with RTX Remix, we just kind of pushed out a really important thing this week, didn't we, Megan?
Yes, Edmar, and thank you for having me today. The Omniverse documentation team pushed out their user survey this week. It's live for 3 weeks, and Edmar, thanks for sharing it. You can find it right at the top of the Omniverse documentation site. We'd really like to know just how you've used our docs, how you've used Omniverse, which you found helpful about the docs, any suggestions you have. If you take 5 minutes of your time and just check out the docs, check out the survey, and let us know what we're doing right and what we could improve. We'd really appreciate it, Omniverse community. And
yeah, I can't tell you how impactful you can be by answering some of these questions for the team. It's a pretty quick survey. I don't know if Megan, do you want to click on it really quick so people see what some of the questions look like? It's very quick, and our documentation team works very hard to make sure that we include everything and that will help you in the right order, in the right examples and videos and stuff. But to do that really, really well, we want to know who's using the documentation and what suggestions you might have to make it better. And this will help. So there you go. It closes on February 9th. Let's see what some of these questions look like. It's anonymous, as it says here. First of all, we want to know where you're located. That might help us with some localization. We want to know what industry you're in. That'll help us a lot too. Current role, something there for everybody. If you're not there, just use the other field. How often you're using Omniverse? If you're new, great. If you're a veteran, we want to know. And then so on and so forth. We don't have to go through the whole thing, but I want to give everybody an idea. It's very quick. We're already a third of the way through the survey. So I hope that everyone can take a few minutes to do that. I think it'll be a big help to the team, and also you'll help improve Omniverse. Speaking about improving Omniverse, so Megan, thank you so much. You are welcome to go to your next meeting, but thank you for doing the pitch. You're welcome to hang out also if you want to hang out and hang out with the RTX Remix.
Thanks, Edmar, and thank you, Omniverse community. I will hop out and finish watching the show and catch you all later. Bye.
Thanks, Megan. All right, now it's time to really get the party started. RTX Remix. So this is probably one of the most exciting topics being talked about right now online in the NVIDIA community. So what just happened? Well, first, actually, what is RTX Remix?
Yeah, Niall, do you want to answer that one?
Sure, I was going to go into a bit more detail about it in a sec, but
yeah.
RTX Remix is a modding platform to help folks remaster classic games with path tracing, DLSS, modern PBR, 4K assets. and also other NVIDIA technologies that essentially lets you turn classic games into brand new looking, almost AAA quality mods with some hard work and some art skills.
That's awesome. And I think we have a little. Are we starting off with a video?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's show off the sizzle video. It's pretty sweet.
All right, this is very sweet. Okay, everyone, check out the video, and we'll be right back.
Wow.
That's awesome. All right, I got
Yeah.
goosebumps. That's a good way to start it. That's
It,
fantastic.
yeah, I've been, shoot, how long have I been on the team? For about 4 months now. These guys are incredible. This dev team is amazing. They pour their heart into Remix because modding classic games is like the heart of everything that they do. They want these games to come back to life. And especially now that we have the AI tools, I just have to say, as an artist myself, it's a whole lot easier modding textures that are in 4K than in 720p. So please use those tools. It is so sweet. But yeah, so what I wanted to show, I was going to go into a long, detailed explanation of what RTX is, but I actually want to just show you one of the messages we got from our community members, because I think it sums up what's really at the heart of what we're doing right here, and that is, but for real, I'm really thankful for NVIDIA developers to make such a magnificent software that is just doing something that would normally be out of reach for one artist. And this software gives us a chance to get these old nostalgic games a second life by just getting them new PBRs and replace models. From the start of announcing the project, I feel the people developing this software give it so much heart and get it working stable on many old games. And that is the trick, right, folks? But thank you, NVIDIA devs. You are all awesome. We thank you, community. You guys are why we do what we do. You guys are our heart. and I want you to download this and play with it. It is an advanced tool, but even if you're just interested, go and check it out and let us know what, your thoughts on it. Let us know, if you're able to get started, what are the things you need us to do. All of that feedback is super important, especially since we just launched the open beta. So definitely check it out, and it's free. So, and on the Omniverse platform. So, you can do all the cool things that Omniverse can do too. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah,
Wow.
So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Niall. He has been, we're like partners in crime, right? Like,
Totally.
yeah.
It's been an awesome partnership,
Yeah.
Wendy, and I've really enjoyed working on Remix. So I'm the product manager for RTX Remix. Many people from our official Discord probably know me. Wendy's totally right. This is a passion project for us at NVIDIA, on the GeForce gaming team, on the Lightspeed team. We've been obsessed with remastering classic games. We did Quake 2 RTX, Minecraft with RTX. Those were our early forays into seeing how amazing path tracing can make these classic games look. And when we were looking at those types of games, we had a very talented lead engineer. Many of you probably know him from our 6-minute Morrowind showcase video. He's got a very recognizable Scottish accent. But Alex Dunn, our lead engineer, he was working on a prototype for a generalizable solution that could put path tracing into classic games. And that was sort of the early days of RTX Remix. And he was injecting path tracing into an early tech demo of Portal, which we would later collaborate very closely with Valve on remastering Portal with RTX using RTX Remix, the tool that we eventually put in the hands of modders. And so if I can kind of sum up why we built it, right? When we look at the modding landscape and we look at path tracing, we know that path tracing is the future. It's used in 3D. It's used all over in the movie industry. It's used in AAA games with Cyberpunk and Alan Wake 2, two of the most beautiful looking games we've seen in the entire history of gaming. And when we look at a future that is path traced, we wanted to make sure modders aren't left behind. Modders are actually, in some ways, better equipped to meeting the graphical cutting edge than regular developers because they can scale their content for the hardware of people rather than building something that everyone needs to be able to run no matter what they're running, whether it's sort of a handheld or a laptop or a PC desktop or a console. And so modders can build for the future and bring an audience together to see what the future can truly look like. And so we're hoping RTX Remix represents that paradigm shift that allows graphical mods to really get to the next level. And to talk briefly about Remix's benefits, um, there's some that are obvious. Getting path tracing into classic games, that's an example of an obvious benefit. It's really hard to have to be a engineer who can reverse engineer ray tracing into classic games. We've seen a lot of people do it in the modding community, but most people don't have that expertise. So we wanted to provide a drag and drop solution for path tracing, which is one of the big reasons we wanted to do it. But alongside solving that problem, we figured out how to create a whole system where we can sort of intercept whatever the graphics card wants to draw and then replace stuff live. And that's how Remix works. The old game is running under the hood, but live, we are almost reskinning the entire game. And by doing that, we can get beyond sort of the classic engines and classic renderers that had so many limitations, and we can modernize all of that. So now you can drop this beautiful, stunning, high quality PBR, a PBR asset with physically accurate materials and high resolution, something with 70 times the polygonal count of what the assets were in these classic games. And it won't crash your renderer. It won't crash the engine because Remix is designed to replace all of that live.
Amazing.
Yeah, so between the lighting and superior models and meshes and textures that you can drop in, the other great benefit we provide is having a framework around OpenUSD or USD file formats. So I want to kind of help you put yourself in the shoes of a modder for a second who's modding a classic game. Let's say I love a classic game and I want to mod it, right? Let's say it's like a source engine game. Well, I need to both find what file formats work in Source Engine, and I need to use tools that can inject those files into Source Engine. And so that means I'm messing around with file formats like SMD and VTF and VMT, these very unusual file formats. And I'm using a dozen tools to try and affect the particles and the lighting and the assets and the textures. And so for that one game like Half-Life, I might learn 12 file formats and 12 tools. But with RTX Remix, for the first time, we're providing a generalizable solution to remaster a variety, dozens of games with the exact same workflow, with the exact same tool, with the exact same file format, which is OpenUSD. And so if you're a modder who's thinking about what game I should mod next or what tool I should use next, I'm really excited about the RTX Remix modders who are going to start modding one game like Half-Life and then find themselves modding a completely different game like Morrowind because they don't have to learn anything new between modding that first game and that second game. And that's a paradigm shift in modding. And we think this is going to change how modding is done, we hope, especially for graphical mods. So that's my intro crash course into RTX Remix, a tool for capturing classic games, bringing their game scenes and assets into the tool, and remastering them with path traced lighting, physically accurate, high quality materials, and using some AI texture tools along the way, some generative AI texture tools to quickly revamp the visuals and help small mod teams remaster massive games at AAA quality. We are completely excited at the future this is going to bring about, and we hope you give it a try. We want to remind you this is an open beta. We've released in beta, and so like Wendy mentioned, we'd love to get your feedback. Get on our GitHub, report any issues you see, or if you have feature requests, put them there. We're in this to discover how to get there and change modding with you, and we're so excited to work alongside you.
That's pretty amazing. So it sounds like there's like two big things happening here. One, not only you get to bring next gen look to old games with path tracing, but also it sounds like this tool set makes it much more accessible, so that more people can get involved with modding, and you don't need as many people on the team potentially. So it sounds like we're going to see a lot more games hitting the waves with a brand fresh new look.
Yeah, Edmar, that's the goal, and we used it to remaster Portal with RTX, and large teams are using it. Orbital Studios is using it, which is a large community team to remaster Half-Life 2. And what I wanted to say about the accessibility point, right? Where we think Remix helps on two vectors. If you're a large team that wants to craft every asset by hand, and you want to remaster these large games with sort of the most AAA look you can, Remix is going to help make it possible for you and your large team. But if you're also a small mod team, which is very often the case, right? Modding is volunteer work generally. It's a passion. It's a labor of love. You usually can't just throw tens of thousands of dollars and hire hundreds of more modders. Your team is sort of your team, people who are passionate about the content. That's where the AI texture tools can really help, because uh, you can sort of scale up the project and handle, let's say, 70% of the textures that a gamer is just going to run by really fast. And you can remaster those with AI, and that gives you more time for your small team to focus on the hero assets, the assets that are going to really draw the eye, and do those by hand in meticulous detail. So it makes it possible to scale upward and make better and bigger mods, and to scale outward if you're a smaller team and do more with less.
It's so exciting, and you can tell by the energy in the chat, a lot of excited people here watching and asking some great questions. Thanks again for all the volunteers helping in the background with the chat. And you have a couple of other special guests here. Who'd you bring along for this show and tell?
Yeah, so I brought Scott, who is the CEO of ModDB and Mod.io. Scott, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thanks, Niall. Hey, everyone. Great to be here. Yeah, my background is 21 plus years of modding. Started ModDB way back in 2002. So it's fair to say that I love the space, still very actively contribute, and are also working on an integrated cross-platform modding solution of our own called Mod.io that's used by a number of studios. And yeah, delighted to be on here and to talk to you all today a little bit more about that.
Yeah, please.
Scott, so for those who may have not caught the news, as part of RTX Remix's open beta release, we have partnered with ModDB, which is one of the largest modding sites and the largest modding site for classic games, which is the target area for Remix. Scott, I showed you, I'd love for you to comment on two things. I showed you RTX Remix a little over a year ago now, with some early, I think it was screenshots from Morrowind, and perhaps another game. I can't recall, but I would love to hear from you, somebody who has seen modding grow for 20 years and who invested in creating one of the first foundational modding websites for games of this classic era. What does it mean? What did it mean to you when you first saw RTX Remix, and sort of what do you think what do you think it means for classic games and the modding scenes of which you've been a part of for so many years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've watched modding evolve and change pretty dramatically over the years. In the early days, it was all total conversions. You modded because you didn't have access, well, amateur creators didn't have access to Unity and Unreal Engine like they do today, and so you had to mod a game like Warcraft 3 or Half-Life if you wanted to create an RTS or an FPS or other games of that genre and era. And then modding sort of changed a lot as consoles rose and platforms that probably weren't too open to it became more prominent. But now PC gaming is sort of really in a really strong place, and modding is so much more accessible than it's ever been. So when I saw Remix, for me it was really exciting because one, obviously there's the graphical element to it and everything that represents and all the new sort of technology and upscaling tools and lighting effects and everything else that people can do, which I'm really interested to see how they apply that. But probably the thing that actually drew me in the most, which is the less glamorous side of it, is that you're building a consistent way for games, at least using the DirectX 8 and DirectX 9 pipelines to be modded. And so that means a lot of titles that historically haven't been modded before now potentially can be because that pipeline is now consistent. And I think that's like over 300 plus games right now that we're tracking that have that capability. And yeah, so seeing people actually tinker in those titles and not just the big usual ones that we're all sort of used to, for me is really exciting.
And why is it that you think what is it that you think ModDB wants? What role do you think ModDB wants to play with RTX Remix? What is it about RTX Remix that you looked at and went, oh, this is where we fit into this picture, into this puzzle, and this is where we can help?
The reason why ModDB started, quite apart from the fact that selfishly I wanted to have a more easy way to find mods, was because back then they were scattered all over the internet, and it was quite hard to locate them to play. And the way that Remix is sort of forming at the moment, which often happens, is they are that content and that knowledge can be pretty scattered at times, especially if it's really active through Discord. It's an amazing channel, but it's sort of very ephemeral, and so if you don't catch the message when it's posted, you might miss the announcement. And so for us, the role that we really want to assist in is one, hosting a lot of the knowledge around all of the games that exist and the core files that you need to have, the captures and the conf files and everything else. And then also allowing the mods to also be hosted. So that way it's sort of this centralized place to sort of discover what's going on within the community, as well as Discord, Reddit, modders that are running their own websites, GitHub, and all sorts of places. That they're all fine. They can all offer operate in a complementary way. We just want to provide a sort of centralized place for those people that want to just dive in at one destination.
And I think it might help as we sort of wrap up our time here on the ModDB section. Like as we talk about compatibility, I think it'd be good to get into a little bit of details of what that means for Remix. So Scott, you alluded to it. RTX Remix, it works with DirectX 8 and 9 games. And part of why that is because how we were able to build a generalizable modding platform is basically anytime these classic games used to send instructions to the graphics card in very consistent and similar generalizable ways. And so as they send these rendering instructions or draw calls to the graphics card, we are able to intercept them and sort of reconstruct the game. And as we're able to reconstruct the game, we can recognize every object in the game, like a barrel or a chair or a table, which means we can replace the barrel, the chair, or the table in real time. And we can also light the environment properly because we know where everything is. We know where the geometry is, the lights, the camera. Now, what happened in gaming is as you got into the mid and late 2000s, many games started employing shaders. And shaders are complicated. They're like black boxes for us on the rendering side. Basically, we don't know what they're doing until things are drawn on screen. And so you have this transition where games are going from fixed function pipelines, the kind that I was saying is generalizable and easy to detect, to shader-based rendering, which we can't detect. And there's sort of everything in between those two things. There's like, some games that use hybrid and some shaders, some that don't use any shaders. And so what that means for compatibility is that with Remix, many times when you start a game, you have to participate in sort of a game setup process where you're identifying what specific elements, so how does this game render uniquely? And when you get through that game setup process, there is a config file that is created that makes sure that the game renders properly every single way. So what ModDB is doing is they're not only tracking what games are compatible, but they're letting users upload those configuration files that makes Remix work with the game properly. And they're also allowing users to share specific instructions that might help some games work that have more unique implementations. And so all you have to do in the future is, and even now, is go to ModDB, find a game that's compatible, download its files, and that makes it relatively easy to make Remix work with it. And these types of community resources are going to keep getting updated with better and better configuration files, with more and more games that we discover are compatible, and with more and more specific information that might make any unique game tick. And that's also a gateway to potentially making games compatible that we never knew could work with Remix. And so I encourage all of our modders who are watching this and who are interested to help build up those community resources at ModDB. Scott, do you want to share some information on how they can do that?
Yeah, certainly. So if you head to moddb.com/RTX, you'll see the listing of games that we're currently tracking and the conf files that Niall just mentioned. There'll also be sort of baseline captures for those titles that have started to get submitted and other things. So that's sort of on the creation side. If you are someone who's making content, whether it's just tutorials and just knowledge, you're welcome to submit them into the articles and guides section, and you'll see that linked as well under moddb.com/RTX/articles. If you are working on a mod, you can sort of submit that through this section. You can click that mods link there and then jump in and add your content. One of the great things, because we know this technology is still pretty new and has only just recently got into people's hands, we know that a lot of the projects are still in development. And so even if your title, your RTX Remix mod is not complete yet, with ModDB, you can certainly submit it in progress. You can share all your screenshots and updates, and then your releases as they become available. So don't be afraid to jump in early and share those in progress. We're already tracking a bunch. There's a few mods already that have started to be listed and sharing those updates. So I hope that covers it.
If you're in the ModDB community, if you're a modder, if you're in our Discord community, this is your central hub. This is your place to make modding many games easy and to share information so it's cemented forever. And we're at the start of open beta. I can't stress this enough. This is a beginning of an era. And we are going to end up at a place, maybe it's weeks from now, maybe it's months from now, where I hope every single game on this list is as easy to mod as downloading a file and getting started. And that will be a huge achievement for modding as a whole. So I encourage you to definitely check it out.
Yeah, I personally can't wait for someone to be able to jump in and mod Need for Speed, and then also apply those same skills in Max Payne, and then apply those same skills in Mountain Blade, and see what starts to come from that. I'm certainly excited to see that.
Don't keep Scott waiting, guys.
I can
Well,
throw in my 2 cents, just as someone who, I've been downloading mods and uploading my own to ModDB for 8 years now. I spent a few years working with Scott as the site's editor and community manager. It makes me so happy to see that ModDB is going to be where this stuff is supported. I think the site is so well placed to support a new generation of modders for these classic games, and I'm really excited to be working with Scott again.
awesome. And maybe this is a great transition as any. David, resident modder on the call, besides Scott, of course. David, you and I actually met each other around the same time I met Scott. Do you want to intro a little bit about your experience with modding?
Sure. So I started as where a lot of people started of my generation with like Gary's mod, which is sort of a source engine kind of Roblox thing of making small contained experiences and using it as a basis for your work. I was making reskins on various Gary's mod servers. My mates and I getting together, wanting a custom this or that or all the other. One thing led to another. I got more familiar with the source engine specifically into Half-Life modding. That's really where my strength lies. And then I also took a particular interest in making mods for games that didn't have mods before. Mainly little old obscure games that no one cared about from when but I grew up with. But passion is where those kinds of things go. And then RTX Remix comes out, and as Scott has already mentioned, one of the things that really appealed to me that gets slept on a little bit is just that Remix is going to let you mod games that were never modded before. And as someone who spent many hours reverse engineering games just to be able to do like a custom texture, it's like, wow, that's like one of the most exciting things about it. There are games, it's incredible. Besides that, now, as Niall says, I met him around the same time as Scott, talking about the tool. Many long hours where he would ask me questions about mods and I would answer top of my head, and we'd both talk until our throats were dry, and then go off and do something more important, probably. And on his end, maybe I would just go back to whatever I was doing in Hammer at the time for Source Engine, and you know, uh, one thing led to another, and I ended up supporting Portal Prelude RTX, which was the first this first external project, as far as I know, done with RTX Remix, working with the original mod author of that, Nicola Grevitt, and remastering one of the most classic Portal mods that's come out. After that, it was, well, why don't we think a bit bigger? And then Half-Life 2 came into the conversation. It's like, well, you can't get much bigger than that. So that's that's where we are now. Using RTX Remix to remaster Half-Life 2, and it's really thrilling to be on this front line of cutting edge of modding. It's really
Yeah,
something.
I think it's not an understatement to say you are the most knowledgeable modder in the world on RTX Remix as far as hands-on experience goes. David is, as he said, is co-leading Half-Life 2 RTX development, and he's one of the heads of Orbifold Studios. David, I think today I believe you're going to be demonstrating RTX Remix. Do you want to kick that right off?
Absolutely. We're going to be doing this in a version of Half-Life 2. Now, just to clarify ahead of time, this is not Half-Life 2 RTX, the Orbifold project. What I've done is I've taken a vanilla version of Half-Life 2 from Steam, installed the RTX runtime into it, and applied all the usual hacks and such that the Discord and has documented, and which are probably now documented on ModDB, for getting a Source Engine game working well with RTX Remix. We're going to go into a sanitized version of Ravenholm that doesn't have zombies and blood everywhere. So if that's what you're coming here for, I'm sorry, you're going to have to go look at that on your own. We're trying to keep it PG here. But we're going to do a capture of, opening of that level or somewhere else in that level. I've got a little cheat sheet of assets that we're going to replace. We're going to be looking at models of varying complexities and also some textures. Particularly, we're going to look at some ones which have some lovely parallax occlusion mapping, because that's one of my favorite texture tools in RTX Remix. And we're going to start with taking a capture. We're going to set up a fresh project. We're going to do the whole thing that everyone would do with their introduction to Remix tutorial, which I voiced. And hopefully this will sound a little bit more fun and natural than me reading at a screen by myself like that video was. So I'm going to present my screen now. We go,
Okay.
entire screen, and there we
All right.
go.
I think I see it now.
There it
Same.
is. Right.
Oh, the
Pay no
metaverse.
mind to the infinite mirror. Okay, let's boot this up. Gonna get Half-Life 2 open first. As I say, this is a vanilla version of Half-Life 2. This is not Half-Life 2 RTX. We will be using some Half-Life 2 RTX assets in this stream. But anything you see that's from Half-Life 2 RTX in terms of assets is subject to change. Um, as with everything else. And yeah, this is everything in today's stream is just purely demonstrative, not necessarily reflective of what we're doing on Half-Life 2 RTX. But let's go. So here we are in a version of D1 Town 01. So some of these issues, like for example, the terrain textures here, because we haven't marked them here in the enhancements tab, sorry, in the game setup tab yet for categorizing textures. This is a feature of the runtime that basically lets you give the RTX runtime a little bit of a leg up in figuring out what to do with all these things. This is like what Niall talked about, where when you start up a game, there will be little things like this that you kind of have to tweak. And that creates an RTX comp file once you fully settle that up. Those RTX comp files are part of what ModDB is hosting, so that you can download one of those and get straight to work without having to do all this tagging yourself. But anyway, we have this opening vista. I'm going to stand at this far end here, press Alt X to bring up the development menu, and we're going to make a capture first of this part of the vista. It's in the top right here. You'll see we have all the capture prompt and everything. I think we're just going to call this D1 Town 01 opening. Capture the scene, and then give it a tick. Once that progress bar says 100%, we have successfully captured this scene. We might capture another scene or two, or perhaps look at a few other vistas depending on what we have time for. But right now, we're just going to take a look at what we've got here. That's 100% now. So now we can boot up RTX Remix. I'm going to quit Half-Life 2 RTX. Well, Half-Life 2 with the RTX runtime installed, I should say. Grab the Omniverse launcher open. And then we're going to launch RTX Remix. Which I installed earlier because I thought, waiting 20 minutes on the stream to install RTX Remix might be pushing the demonstration a bit far for some people. Not sure that'd be all that interesting to watch personally. Okay, so here we are. We've got the RTX Remix set up here. Seeing as this is our first project that we've set up on this machine, we're going to go to Setup Project. We've got all these prompts here. We don't want to open or edit or remaster an existing project. These three are about existing works, basically, either opening your own project or editing an existing one, or remastering if you'd like to use one mod as a basis for your own. But as I say, we're doing it completely from scratch today. Just going to click Create. The first thing we want to select is our project file location. That's basically where all the project files are going to end up being. This has to be an empty folder, so I'm just going to make a new folder here. I've got a little folder on my desktop called RTX mods, and then in Half-Life 2 RTX a demo. Here in the project folder is where I would have it. I'm just going to make it again just so we have it here. As I say, has to be a completely empty folder. There we go. And now we're going to navigate there from within RTX Remix. So very easy. Desktop, here, project folder. And then down here, we enter the name of what our project's going to be. We're going to call this Half-Life 2 RTX sample. This saves as a .usda file by default. These are basically USDs that are in plain text instead, so that you can read them as a human instead of binary, which only computers can do at the moment. I'm going to save as. And then we need to specify the remix directory. This requires us to actually navigate through to Steam, in our case anyway, since that's where Half-Life 2 is. So we're going to navigate to Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Half-Life 2, and we're going to click this RTX remix folder here. Select. We'll see our capture we just made has already come up. Going to select that as well, and then click Create. And magic, we should have a capture opening up. There it is. Our scene
This
is
is my
coming in,
favorite part. Yeah.
and there it is down there.
Amazing.
Slow down the camera a
It's
little bit.
magical to
Ooh.
be able to go from
Very cool.
being a game fan and playing games, then to suddenly be like, whoa, I'm loading the game into an app and I can move around it and fly around it and pull up close to any object. And see all the
Oh,
lights. You guys see all the sun icons. Each of those sun icons is a light that has been detected and captured by RTX Remix.
Very exciting.
There we go.
And
So we are now flying around the scene that we just took here, as Niall says.
because we skipped the process of setting up the configuration file properly, you're going to see some artifacts in the viewport right now. If you were to properly do that game setup process, this should look one-to-one or very close to one-to-one with the game itself, except, of course, fully path traced, making it pretty
Absolutely.
easy to work on your mod.
Absolutely. This is about as vanilla as it comes for a setup, but as I say, one of the strengths of the ModDB is you will be able to look up a game that you want to remaster and see if the community's already whipped up an rtx.conf. The Discord has whipped up comps for like dozens of games now. It makes it very easy to get started. And there may even already be a comp for Half-Life 2. So that gets you a slightly better start. So we can select stuff in the viewport here, for example, the lights, and we can click on other assets as well. There's basically kind of a couple of different types of content here worth bearing in mind. We have an actual 3D model asset here in this lamp. We have this light gizmo here. This is a captured light from the base game. And then lastly, we have this, which is basically world geometry. World geometry in a lot of games is not stable. There's a good section in the documentation about how to get around that and do asset replacements. But because of POM, that is parallax occlusion mapping, that's not necessarily something that's needed in every single case, as we'll see. So we're going to replace this material first. Let me consult my cheat sheet. I believe this is Woodwall 28A. So as we go into the source assets folder here, I'm actually just going to create a new folder in here in the project folder. This is going to be our post-ingested assets. So once the assets have gone through Remix and are ready to go into the scene, this is where we're going to stick them. I'm just going to create two folders in this assets folder called materials. This will be for the world materials and world geometry, and models. This will be for the assets that we're actually replacing. So other than that, then, we're ready to ingest a world material. So let me get into the source assets folder, materials, wood, and then I believe it is the 27 set. There we go. So we've got this open here in the file path, and you can, of course, browse to all of these in RTX Remix. This is just a workflow that I've developed over the last year or so. Just having everything open just makes it a lot easier because you can just paste everything right in. So we're going to click on the ingestion tab. This is basically how you ingest models and materials to make them RTX Remix ready. RTX Remix likes models that are in the USD, USDA, or USDC formats. USDA generally the best, and you start there by default. It also likes textures that are in the DDS format. It can convert from a wide variety of image files into the DDS format. We're starting with PNG here. That's probably the most common starting point. We're gonna drag these here into
David, can you
viewport.
just comment what exactly is this? What is M Woodwall 027?
Well, this is basically I probably should say that, shouldn't I? I'm used to doing this by myself for long hours. This is a asset that's been remade by a material artist on Orbifold Studios. I believe this one was Chuck who remade this one. This is basically the original. This is the original game texture that you see here. In Half-Life 2, these textures are typically 512 by 512 resolution. On Half-Life 2 RTX, we've been trying to remake world textures to 4K resolution. So if I open up the photo here, so you'll see I do not want a video editor right now. You can zoom all the way in on this albedo map. It's 4K on every axis. And then, of course, in the source engine as well, you only really have access to a normal map as well for any other details. These are also similarly sized, and not every world material uses them. Because RTX Remix converts every material into being able to use PBR instead, we're actually able to use the full suite of an albedo, metal, roughness, and normal map. We've also got a height map here for the POM, but we're going to see how that looks like in a minute.
Awesome.
So,
And so David's running through the ingestion process. As he mentioned, uh, Remix comes packed with a pretty powerful ingestion pipeline that will take a variety of file formats and convert them into USD. And so this is essentially what enables you to not have to juggle a bunch of file formats, because Remix can modify a range of games using USD, and it can take in a variety of file formats and convert them to USD, which is, for those who are not familiar with
Amazing.
OpenUSD, it is a file format that was developed by Pixar, that is used across the movie industry and gaming industry, and is you have options to export or manipulate USD files in practically every digital content creation tool. Blender being a popular one amongst modders that supports it.
that's right. So now that we've dragged our materials into here, you'll also see the ingestion panel has automatically picked up on what these materials are. The albedo is coming as an albedo, roughness, height, metallic, normal map, etc. You can also define your normal map convention, which is getting a little into the weeds, describing what the differences are. But you'll know if you're making your assets what the differences are, and if you don't, generally DirectX is the safest bet. So now that we've got this, we're going to specify our output directory. This is where Remix is going to spit out all our textures when it's done. And we're going to add this to the queue. Just going to note in advance, texture ingestion is pretty intensive, much more intensive than model ingestion. So we're going to have to let Remix do its thing here for a sec. It might take 30 seconds or so to ingest all of these. If there are any issues with ingestion, again, the tool is in open beta, so your mileage is what it is. Let's add this to the queue.
Speaking of open beta, we did get a suggestion from one of our helpers. I think it's Pierre. He's suggesting when you get a chance to restart the app for a better frame rate.
Sure, I can do that. Is that something to do with first-time project setup?
Yes,
assuming so.
that is the known issue. Correct. Yeah, we
Gotcha. There we go.
thanks to our open beta users, we've learned about this one, and it's a high priority for us to fix.
Got it. Well, thanks for the tip, Pierre. Now that the textures are ingested, everyone, I'm just going to restart Remix real quick. But you can see here it's spit out all of the textures we put in. That was these ones here as DDS files. And it's also created some meta files on the other end. These are basically little data files that tell Remix this is indeed an ingested texture and it is ready to go into RTX Remix. Anyway, as Pierre suggested, I'm going to restart the tool real quick. Go back to Omniverse, boot this thing back up. Be a good chance to show the project menu again, though, and see the project back in the selection screen. Here we go. So you see now that we've actually set up our project, we don't have to reopen it every time. You just double click here and boom, there we go. Oh, wow, look at that frame rate. Thanks, Pierre. It would have been funny if I did the whole demo like that, huh? All right. So back to this wood wall then. We've got our ingested textures, but now we need to put them in. So we're going to double click this world geometry here. In the viewport, you'll see it's selected, got this nice glowing green line around it. We're going to go into the asset replacements tab. We're going to maximize this tab. Then if we click this arrow, we'll see we've got our mod USDA layer. So the way that Remix loads all the content, it does so in layer files. This lets you basically control the hierarchies for everything. How you choose to set up your layers is kind of up to you. It really depends on your project. If you're the only person working on anything, maybe you only need one layer. But there's a lot of value in having multiple layers on teams with multiple people so that everyone can contain their work on one layer. And across a game the scale of Half-Life 2 RTX, we actually have multiple layers and we have those organized per chapter. So each chapter has its own set of layers for lighting, materials, models, and so on. This helps us keep all the content properly organized, keeps the USDA files of these layers about as lightweight as they possibly can be with a game that scale. Just for the sake of demonstrating the process, um, we're going to select the mod USDA layer here. It's left click it so you can see it's now highlighted. I'm going to make a new layer. This brings up this prompt again. You can just enter another name of a layer. It again saves it as a USDA. We're just going to textures. There we go. Create. And you see we've now got a new layer here. If we click this icon, then now any changes we make will be saved to this layer. With that all in here, we're going to make these changes to this world material. I'm going to get up nice and close so we can see that detail really pop in, which for me is one of my favorite parts of this, seeing all the pixels come into place. We're going to open up this base material tab here, and you'll see we've now got locations for our albedo map, roughness map, metallic map, and normal map. This is your bread and butter for pretty much any texture addition to any model or world material. This might be the only tab you ever generally need, although there are other features here. We probably won't go into great detail on all of these, but we will be showing the displacement tab in a moment. The albedo map is basically the original captured texture in this instance. When Remix captures a texture from the base game, it converts it from whatever format it might have been in. In this case, it would have been a VTF, a Valve texture format texture, into a DDS so that Remix can properly interpret it for the runtime. We're going to replace this outright. This brings up a prompt again. I'm just going to paste the file pathing here to my ingested assets, select the albedo, and press select. And there we go. Straight in. We've already got ourselves 4K. Just so we can see
Wow.
that again, I'm going to reset that asset.
That's crazy.
Come back. So there we go. You can also reset the original property of an asset from here. So again, if I go really up close and press this, that's what we started with. And this is what we've got.
Amazing.
Putting a 4K texture into the source engine would absolutely devour your performance, but because RTX Remix is not the source engine itself, it's a interpreting layer, if you will, this is actually very, very performant. So let's put in the other texture maps now the same way. We're going to put in the roughness map, the metallic map.
And for those who aren't familiar with PBR as a workflow, you're basically able to ascribe physically accurate material properties based on these maps that David is uploading. So an albedo map influences the color. The roughness map influences how kind of shiny the object is as it interplays with light. The metallic is also similarly influences how basically the object reacts to light. And then you can also add normal maps. Normal maps will like create little lines and divots and gaps in the texture cracks that make it feel 3D. And then parallax occlusion mapping, POM, uses a height map to even further accentuate sort of the height and bumpiness. And so PBR is how all AAA games are basically made today. And it was a paradigm shift in rendering and art workflows in gaming and movies. And the fact that now you can do that, many remasters we've seen in the last 3 years, PBR is a major reason why they look so good. And now modders get that power with a huge catalog of classic games.
Absolutely. So speaking of parallax occlusion mapping, we've got the albedo map, the roughness, metallic, the normal. This is now a 4K PBR material, still a considerable upgrade over the base game, but Remix lets you go a little bit further. This is still fundamentally 2D. As cool as the normal maps might look, especially with the path trace shadows, you look at it from the right angle and it's still very obviously a plane. Parallax mapping will change. So we're going to go here to the height map, plug in our height map, and you'll see that's what happens when you have it at max intensity. But if we bring it down a little bit to, let's say, 0.01, which is a pretty good starting point, I've been told, for Substance Painter created materials, we can go a little bit up close and we can now see, best as we're able, that it's actually being displaced at a 3D level. There we go. If I get a nice side-on shot, you can really see, unless I fly into the wall. There we go. You see here how the parallax is actually divoting in the wood. And now, because of path tracing, this is casting shadows on itself because of the parallax. This is the kind of thing you don't get with normal maps. This gives you a lot of great detail and a lot of great scenes. I mean, you can see all the shadows that are being casted on the material by itself, because all of these little gaps and everything are actually being properly created by the parallax mapping. Um, and then obviously, of course, you can knock up the intensity a bit if you want to accentuate the effect even more. Generally, as I say, you want to go for something a little bit more reasonable. But this is a really great material for this, and I really particularly think in Ravenholm in the trailer, Niall, this created some really great vistas, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the texture work, the material work, the character work, the assets, the polygonal detail. Half-Life 2 RTX represents a world-class remix project, and it's a great example and role model for how good RTX mods can look with RTX Remix. I definitely think it's the proof is in the pudding. You can play games like Portal RTX today, and you'll be able to play Half-Life 2 RTX in the future, and maybe by the time it's released, we'll see a bunch of mods started of this caliber by teams as large.
There we
I
go.
just want to say hi to all the raiders from Jacob's channel. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate it.
Thanks, folks.
Hey there. Okay, so now we're going to run through a asset so that we have a little bit of variety. So we aren't just replacing world textures. And in Half-Life 2's Ravenholm, one of the most iconic assets is, of course, the saw blade, which, for family-friendly purposes, is definitely not used what you think it's used for. Definitely not. So we're going to replace this asset here with one that we've made in Half-Life 2 RTX. The ingestion process is very similar. This time, however, we will also be ingesting a model. So we're going to double click this. This time I'm going to make another layer. Again, we're going to first select and maximize the mod USDA layer and create a new layer here called sample models. There we go. And set that to our edit target so we can show some good practice isolating world textures and models on different layers. I navigate within my source assets folder here to find the saw blade.
So what David's doing here is a talented artist has already built the saw blade using probably Blender or another DCC tool. And he is now just finding it in his directory to import into Remix. I've seen the question a lot of whether Remix allows you to rebuild models. And I want to be very clear that while the AI texture tools, the generative AI texture tools are there to help you author textures, remastering models will require you to use a DCC tool like Blender. But that's where Remix helps you, is pulling that into the game.
Absolutely. And of course, all the assets we've been making for Half-Life 2 RTX have all been handmade by very talented artists. The AI tools are a great leg up for a solo small team, but luckily on Half-Life 2 RTX, we have a significant team of artists who can do all this work by hand. We're going to ingest this asset now. So again, we're going to go and visit the ingestion tab. This time we're going to go into the models tab, and it's very similar as the materials tab. I just want to note there is also a add from library button here. Clicking this will bring up access to assets that are integrated with Omniverse. So if, for example, you want to just get a general feel for how a scene might look, you can go to the add from library tab and look for some relevant assets that are already available via Omniverse, like lamps and trees and
Can you click
furniture
that
and
to
so
show
on.
it, David?
Absolutely, yeah, I can do.
Yeah, tons of cool assets here.
Absolutely. See lots and lots of stuff.
Over 1,000
Lemons.
assets
Yeah,
that people can try and put into their mods.
yeah. Too many for us to go through right now and ingest every single one of them right now. But plenty for you to get started with and to kind of see how those all come together. Um, and of course, a big thing in modding is making asset packs for the community to use. Two of the teams that helped form Orbifold originally, Half-Life 2 remade assets and Project 17, themselves were Half-Life 2 mod teams that were making asset packs to be used in mods. You know, those asset packs are also going to be a tremendous boon if you're that just exist in modding already. If you want to get started with remastering a game. Um, Speaking of, let's get this saw blade ingested. Why don't we? Again, we can drag and drop the FBX file into here. We can also add from this browse feature here. Remix can interpret a couple of different model types. I believe it also has support for OBJ, but FBX is probably the most common model type you'd be expected to come across. Um, Over here in the output directory, I'm going to create a separate textures folder that the actual assets textures are going to go into, but we're going to export the model itself into its own root folder. I'm going to grab that file path there like usual, paste that in there, then click add to queue. And there we go. Saw blade is ingested. This time it has been exported as a USD. Again, the meta file serves a purpose as expected. You can export the model as a USDA so that it's plain text and you can fiddle around with it if you would like to. But the tool is extremely powerful, and I think the cases where you'd want a USDA are quite fringe. If you're a beginner, I'd say stick with the basics for now. I'm going to go to the materials tab here. And did this? Oh, it did actually. Okay, so this is an interesting fringe case I can bring up as well. If you have in Blender or something embedded your model's textures in the node editor, or in a similar tool via a similar method, as long as those textures are adjacent to the model file in the same file path as in the 3D modeling software, then Remix will interpret that and automatically convert the textures for you as well. So here we've already seen that the albedo, normal map, and roughness map have all been ingested for us. So the only one that we need to do is the metalness mask, and that's probably because that wasn't in the original asset in the first place. So we only need to ingest one here. We saved us a little bit of effort there. Come over here, paste the file path again, just add that to the queue. Nice and speedy this time since we're only ingesting one. And there we go. We have all of our textures ingested and ready to go. Let's grab this file path and go back to the modding tab over here. We've marked the sample models layer as our authoring layer. So again, select the saw blade. The workflow here is a little different. Over here, it will show us the mesh. This is the original mesh. As with textures being converted to DDS, Remix also converts the captured models into USD, again, so that the tool can read them and interpret them properly. We're going to add our new reference right in this button here, right above the Add New Stage Light button, which can also be used to add lights to assets. Paste in our file path to our exported saw blade, select the USD, press select, and there we go. It's come in a little larger than we would expect, perhaps, but that's fine because it gives us a chance to show you off the gizmos. You also see that since the textures were embedded in the model, not only has Remix ingested the textures for us, but has also automatically assigned those textures. We can maximize this, and we can see is assigned them much the same as we assigned the world material for that wood wall. The only one we need to do by hand is a metallic map. So, now we've done all that, it's a little bit larger than the original. It's also not quite the right rotation. Sometimes things can be different when you're modeling an external software. If you model to the original proportions, shape, and positioning of the asset, you will generally get a smoother ingestion. But if you're not, a little bit of tweaking might be required. That's perfectly fine. We have a variety of ways to tweak this asset. Basically, we can move it around in the viewport like that, and like that.
Oh, can you pull out and show what that looks like for a second? Because I think there's an interesting observation here. So you see, it's moving every saw blade, and that's because when Remix detects an object, it classifies every similar object as the same object. Every identical object is tracked. So when you make a change to one object, it makes the change to every identical version of that object, and that saves you a ton of time with modding. So when David was remastering the wooden cabin earlier, every wooden texture actually got replaced. And similarly, as he's customizing and replacing this one saw blade, it's replacing every saw blade.
That's awesome.
Here's a place over here where, although we did the wooden texture over there, it actually also replaced this one right here, on the side of this wall. And yeah, this does save you a ton of time and effort. It means instead of hunting down every trace of an asset, as you might sometimes have to do in a game if you wanted to replace an asset, you only have to do it the once, and Remix will handle the rest for you. Similarly, we found on Half-Life 2 RTX for our own purposes that the instancing system is very easy to work with for introducing extra prop variety. Like for example, these paint cans, which observant people in the trailer might have noticed, we added some extra varieties. Again, Remix is very handy at adding new versions, sort engine side into the instances tab, and still making our lives easier, even when we want to make them a little harder. So we've pulled that out of the wall a bit. You see these change. There's basically a variety of different layers here for where the positioning can be changed. Generally, best to change it on this base layer down here, where it says whether in this case it says plane 15. That's the name of the model. If you press this, it'll reset it to its defaults before we started messing around with the positioning of it. So I'm just going to click this button so it's back in the wall. So it's rotated the wrong way. As I say, as well as messing around in the viewport with rotations, for example, we can do such things as that. We can also simply write it in here. Since it looks like we just need a nice 90-degree flip here, we're just going to do that, and that's going to handle that. Still a little bigger than we would like. For this one, the scale doesn't quite appear to be double, so this may not be as clean a touch, but so this is an instance where, for example, if you don't know the actual number it should be, using this one here is a little bit awkward, but no worries because we have the gizmo here. This gizmo will let us rescale the asset dynamically and get it to like about the right scale, which looks to be something like that. Just eyeballing it. Yeah, that looks about right to me. And so you can see also you can just make it really, really huge if you want. It's worth noting Remix doesn't change the collisions of an object, just the appearance of an object. So if this object is really massive, you will walk right through it because the game engine is still interpreting the collisions of the original. And if you make it really small, then you will be blocked by invisible space. So keep your assets generally about the same size as the original for best results. Anyway, we're going to again get to about that scale. There we go, that's quite good. And now that we've done all of that work, we've assigned our textures and added our reference model, we can delete the original reference. So now every instance of the saw blades across the game will be our new remastered saw blade model. Last things last is now we're going to save these two layers here and here. I'm going to quit Remix and we're going to boot up the game again and go look at these assets in game.
Can I just ask a quick question on the asset? Now, does that
Sure.
do you capture each level as a separate mod file? Like you go through per level and make a separate file?
So when you make a capture, it basically takes a screenshot sort of where you're looking at and captures everything on screen into that scene we just saw in Remix now. You will need to make one of these captures, multiple of these captures, probably per level, to capture all the different parts of a level, in order to remaster it. This is another place where ModDB really comes in strong. There are already modders who have been uploading captures to the site of various games, including Half-Life 2. Someone's already handled that. You'll be able to download these and have all the scenes pre-captured for you. Other modders will also be able to upload their scene capture files. It will take some time to do your first full capture of the game, but then you can get started remastering the game. And in a lot of cases, someone has already done that work for you. You can go right in and start your modding.
But yes,
Right.
Edmar, every single capture is its own USD that you can browse easily, and you can click between all of your captures.
So my question was, when you upgrade that saw
sorry,
blade,
Richard.
no, that's good. When you upgrade that saw blade, would you put it in a common root folder where it would instance across multiple USDs and multiple levels, or would you have to, in other words, that instancing would work for that capture, but it wouldn't necessarily work for other things? You'd have to.
It would work for all of your. It would actually work for all of the captures for that game.
Oh, okay,
Exactly.
good. So
Oh,
you
wow.
just do it once for
Across-
multiple levels.
Yeah, across all of Half-Life 2 now, even though that's the only capture we've made today, across all of Half-Life 2, every single level, if that saw blade appears, it's replaced.
Because
So
you're
once you
replacing
replace-
it at the source of the original game, so it knows where to look for it on all levels.
Basically, yeah, exactly. So once you've replaced it in one, replaced an instance of an asset in one capture, it will replace that asset throughout the whole game. You don't need to recapture that asset anywhere else. As long as you've replaced it in one place, it will replace everywhere.
And actually, Half-Life 2 has started doing well. David, while you're loading into this game, I'll talk about this because I think you probably find it interesting to say it. We've learned a lot. When we made Portal with RTX, we didn't have traditional modding skills per se in Hammer or any of the Source Engine, but these guys, Orbifold Studios, they actually do have traditional modding experience. So what they've done is they've actually created a test map that has every asset in Half-Life 2, and they just replace the assets in that test map, and then they go into their levels and every asset is remastered. So they don't actually have to even go and replace them in each level. When they're changing out assets, they just kind of do it in this one test map that has every asset in the game.
That's
kind of
that's the
interesting.
great idea, like a
Yeah.
kit bash idea, you know, like replace the kit bash, and then everything else follows.
Yeah, these maps look like the Matrix to me, you know, like in the Matrix, and there's the white room and all of the weapons come out or whatever. Like it's like a white room, but every Half-Life 2 asset in the world is there. And half of
Yeah,
them,
I
when
can
I
see it
walk
like
through
that.
it, half of them are replaced, and you know, they're as it's a work in project process.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's definitely something that uh but yeah, but Vern, who was one of the principal artists at NVIDIA on Portal RTX and was a great help with Half-Life 2 RTX as well, found that approach very interesting as well. And that's a case where you can leverage existing modding experience to even more so take advantage of Remix, right? It's Remix functions really well on its own, but it also scales really well if you have skills that can collaborate with it. So I've been looking at this wooden wall for a bit now. This is the wall that we replaced in Remix. We're now in the game, by the way. I've got some commands on suggested by the Discord, which also hide your weapon. But you can see that I am able to shoot and everything because we're actually in the game. And that is our asset right there with the POM implemented and all that. And then over here in the enhancements menu, we can disable and enable the replaced asset to see it pop in live.
Wild.
Kind of see how everything comes together.
And that's effectively just loading and unloading the USD modification layer that you made.
That's right. So this is the original game as it was. No enhancements, modifications whatsoever. But then this is re-enabling our enhancements. We're able to see those pop in live. So you can really get a close look at how these assets have come together.
So the workflow is even non-destructive like USD.
Exactly. It's really easy to, if you want to start fresh, unhook your existing mod. You might, for example, want to make multiple variations of a mod. Quite a lot of mods for Half-Life 2 are reskins, for example, that aren't necessarily about what being 100% faithful remakes of original game assets, but giving you new weapons to play with or changing how the world looks. And you can pretty easily and seamlessly swap between RTX mods by just marking them in on the file path. It's then very simple to turn these on and off. So although we can turn on and off the enhanced assets here, this is not a permanent change made to the game. We can unhook it at any time on the file side and hook in another mod, and it's very straightforward. See this asset over here as well. It's a little bit in shadow, so not quite as easy to see. But let's go have a look at this saw blade replacement we've done here. Um, Did I save the model layer? I'm pretty sure I did. The wood wall did come through, so we have got the replacements. Okay, I'm pretty sure I saved the model layer, but perhaps I made a small blunder and did not. Okay, well, that's not a replaced asset. Right, take two. Let's try this again.
Well, that's all right. I think people understand the workflow, and
Mhm.
yeah, next time we
Yeah,
know
sure.
to save the file, and it will show up.
Yeah.
Um, thank you so much, David, for showing off that workflow.
Mhm.
I hope people found it very instructive. Um, you know, we really did design it to account for tons of variety in all these different types of PBR maps in order to enable people to visualize their content properly and to not compromise on how they build their assets and how they view them in game. And we started with just normal and roughness and metallic, but talking to the Orbifold Studios team, they led us to how important parallax occlusion mapping would be. So we designed that. We've got subsurface scattering working for foliage and for thin materials. So we keep expanding all the types of variety of things you can render with Remix. And that's going to be a big focus for us as we keep developing the product. Thank you so much. Is there any other, do we have time for Q&A? We're pretty over at this point, so I didn't know if we did.
Well,
Yeah, sorry.
oh, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just gonna say we've been answering, like the Q&A crew has been answering as we've been going. So I think we're pretty
You're in
good.
beast
Yeah.
mode. So I was going to say, like, do you want to talk a little bit about where players should go to kind of follow up and learn more or chat with other modders?
Sure.
You guys have a great Discord you're part of in the community, right?
Yeah, we have an amazing Discord. It's not an official Discord, actually. The community organically built it themselves. And it is already 9,000 modders large, which is enormous. For a tool that just came out yesterday. Yesterday? Man, the days have been moving
Yeah.
fast. 2 days ago.
They kind of blend together.
But essentially, I just want to, thank everyone who has been participating in that Discord. You really are the lifeblood of the project, and you motivate us every single day when we watch and see what you're doing with Remix. Even with a pre-alpha version of the Remix runtime, now you have the beta tool. And, someday when we come out with full release, we know that there will be hundreds of incredible mods thanks to you all. So what I would say is, please check out the RTX Remix community Discord. It's a great place to troubleshoot, figure out how to make any particular game that is compatible work properly with Remix, get tips on how to start your first Remix mod. And please check out ModDB and become a regular contributor there so that all of this information that we're sharing and that are going to help make Remix a platform for remastering hundreds of classic games in beautiful quality can all be kept in one place, and that information can be cemented for everyone to use, for everyone to take advantage of. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this stream.
Yeah, thank
That is
you.
awesome. And thank you so
Absolutely.
much, David. David, I have to say, your voice, first of all, you're a great presenter. The knowledge was amazing. And I kept thinking your voice reminded me of someone, then it hit me. Total Biscuit is
Oh, yeah. We're
great.
from the
Great
same
name.
country, that's a.
I feel like you're from the same town or something. You guys have the same exact accent.
Well,
But
I don't know about that, Yeah, I stream pretty regularly. Not anything this serious generally, just messing around. But I'm quite used to talking, which is probably how we've ended up going over. Sorry.
no, it's great. I think it was super helpful. And I have
Yeah,
to
it
say,
was
like, I
really
think
good.
one of the amazing things about this technology is that if anyone out there wants to get in the game industry, like you want to start working at a studio or a publisher or really, this is an awesome way to get in. I can't tell you enough. Like when studios look for people, if a modder comes to their door and you got a cool project to show off, that shows real experience, real dedication, and a real like thirst for learning and doing something on your own. So it's a great way to get into it. One of the first teams I worked with was formed from the mod team behind this mod for Battlefield 1942 called Desert Combat. These guys did such a good job modding Battlefield 1942 that DICE actually hired the whole team, and they created DICE New York from that team, and then eventually they formed a new studio. Anyway, it's a great way to get integrated in the industry. I'm really excited to see what the community does with these amazing tools and with this great tutelage from David and others here and other people in the community. Niall and Wendy, thank you so much for coming. Scott, you had to leave a little earlier, so thank you, Scott. Thank you so much to the helpers there in the chat. Really, really exciting. Congratulations on the open beta. I want to do this again when we have some stuff to show off in the community. That'd be amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's actually a really good note. Before we
Yeah.
sign off, I'll just say that's a great note, right? Like modding is a great way to get into the games industry, and you have the power with Remix to make one of, there's It's not like there are hundreds of path trace games out there. You are on the cutting edge when you build mods with Remix, and that means you're essentially making cutting edge graphical games. So it's a great shout out, Edmar, and thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anytime. You
thank
guys are
you.
welcome back. Yeah.
I just want
It was
to say
awesome.
hi to Wendy. I know a lot of fans are on the side of the chat here saying welcome back, Wendy. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to come back more often too. So we'll have to do something.
Well,
Go
if
through
anyone out
what-
there
yeah.
who's also interested in OpenUSD, feel free to subscribe to this channel where we cover OpenUSD workflows and the ecosystem every week. We have multiple live streams, including this one on Wednesdays. But definitely, I hope to see everybody on the RTX Remix Discord. I'm a new member there, so I can't wait to see what other people are showing off. Until
Me
next
too.
week. Thank you so much. And thank you, Wendy, for helping put this together. I'm glad we waited.
Yeah.
We wanted to kind of do this earlier. And we're like, the open beta is coming. Let's wait for the open beta. I'm so glad we waited. And I got to have
Oh
David
yeah,
and Scott
perfect
here.
timing. Perfect timing. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, that's great.
We'll talk to you all later. Thanks,
Night,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone. See you then. Happy modding.